My name is Vance Vaucresson. I am a native New Orleanian. My family has been in New Orleans many generations. Our business is, we're sausage makers, Creole sausage makers, and we've been in the Creole community for a number of years. We've traced back our family's participation within the Creole sausage making business to around 1899. I'm a third generation Creole sausage maker. My dad, Robert Anthony Vaucresson Sr., took on the business from his father, Robert Levinsky Vaucresson, and he was a butcher by trade, and he passed that particular trade on to my dad. But my dad was more of an entrepreneurial spirit. He just couldn't keep still. So he ventured off into not only having the meat market, he wanted to have a sausage processing facility, which he opened in '83, along with the restaurant that he had on Bourbon Street at a time when people of color weren't allowed to have it in the '60s. Our family was one who we were raised in the what is known as the 7th Ward of New Orleans. The 7th Ward of New Orleans is a part of New Orleans that is known for a large congregation of Creoles of color to reside. But not only Creoles of color, you also had French Creoles, white Creoles, who lived in this very mixed area at one time. Before the Americanization of the city, you know, Creoles lived alongside the Italians and the Irish and all these other cultures, and they lived harmoniously. I mean, a lot of times, a lot of the corner stores within the Creole community at one time were all Italian grocers. They came in and they brought that particular ability to come in and have groceries and provide for the neighborhoods. They also contributed when you have this multi-ethnic mingling, they introduced things to the Creole culture that we still utilize today. More so like we have an affinity to Italian sausage. We also have an affinity for what we call the panade of meats. Panade meat, which means to bread meat. We now, to this day, if any Creole wants to make panade pork chops, panade veal, which came from the Italians use a lot of veal. A lot of that we still to this day use Italian breadcrumbs as the breading, the crumbs that we use with that flavoring to achieve that flavor for us. So a lot of the influences that we look at historically came from that mixing of culture. My family, being in the meat business and in the food business, were able to serve our community for a number of years before Hurricane Katrina destroyed our business, and we've been rebuilding ever since. New Orleans is one of those cities that, even with all the changes, even with all of the Americanization, even with people who have come in and tried to reinterpret, we as a Creole culture has survived. We've been hanging on because our culture and what we've contributed to it stand out so much as New Orleans culture. When you look at the Mardi Gras Indians, that is basically the people of color who have very distinct Indian heritage, who has brought and melded this to create this wonderful, wonderful cultural example called Mardi Gras Indians and those things that happen. When you look at the music, of course, jazz, which unfortunately is so underappreciated in America, even in New Orleans. If it wasn't for the fact that we're a tourist city, a lot of those jazz musicians wouldn't get the work that they would get. But a lot of them have had to go to Europe because that's where we're appreciated. Even my cousin, Lillian Boute, left here 30 years ago and has lived in Hamburg, Germany for most of her life and has toured Europe, Switzerland, New Zealand, Australia, all these places because they value jazz music. And we've just continued to try to, now in New Orleans, where we are, and trying to just maintain a presence as authentic Creole people, so that our history doesn't get convoluted, our history doesn't get lost or misrepresented, because you have people who have come in and they love our culture so much, they want to be a part of it so much, that once they tend to submerge themselves in it, they want to then come up out of that being an authority and then being the storytellers. Because as a company of color in the meat industry, which is predominantly white, it was very hard for us to crack into that from a broader scale. We've had people in other businesses, white-owned businesses, who told us, we're going to put you out of business. We're going to, there's no way you can compete. And we fought and fought and fought to the point where eventually we established ourselves. And we just kept providing an example of what we consider authentic Creole food products that were, and when we went forth in trying to educate people, which is what I try to do now, as we move forward, you have so many people that come to the city and they automatically think, I'm coming to New Orleans to eat Cajun food. Right then and there was the bastardization of our culture, because they took Cajun, which is more associated with Caucasoid peoples, and put it in the forefront, where Creole should be in the forefront. And now people are starting to realize, because of the fact that they can go to the computer, they can read, they can seek out information themselves, they're realizing that the true food down here, the true essence of what New Orleans was created, maintained, and is being put forth in the future by people of color. A multi-ethnic mingling of history, culture, and people.